Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Timmy. In today's video, I want us to address a certain issue. Whenever I post like response from whenever I react um on videos where maybe a pastor's wife is asked to preach and she's preaching submission and people are like surprised why a woman would also be what they call a pick me or a patriarchy princess, or they call them names, right? So I just want to respond to that quickly because I've had to work closely with a lot of pastors and a lot of pastors' wives. So to an extent, I have an insight to their realities. So because of that, I do want to comment on something that women need to pay attention to, especially women who are on their awakening journey. If you're religious, so taking Christianity as an example, to begin with, within religion, not just religion, but any Abrahamic religion at all, it's kind of difficult for women to understand autonomy or to understand that they are human beings. So within religion, women just know that they are human beings, but they don't necessarily know like subconsciously that they are human beings. So within their subconscious mind, it has not come to a point where they truly grasp what it means to be an autonomous being. So even though they know they are human beings, they don't understand that they are autonomous being because they believe in the Bible and they believe every single thing that the Bible says without regard to the fact that the Bible was a book that was written by men. So I feel like if women kind of read the Bible more like the way they would read any other book, it will give them an insight to how the thought process behind writing that book is. I mean, we're talking about a book that talks about women as an afterthought. In Genesis, they say God created man, and it was more like something was missing in the life of man. So the actual thought or the actual person that was created in the image and the likeness of God was man. So whenever they say man in the Bible, women tend to want to involve themselves and be like, oh, they're talking about humans, right? It is not always talking about humans. It is actually talking about men, right? So one thing that I've realized is that the Bible is a book that was written by men for the benefit of men. So that does not, if you are a spiritual person and you want to connect to your spiritual being, that's totally fine. And just like any other book, you can find informations that you feel like they are helpful or they resonate with you, but also find information that you don't agree with. That's how I've come to consider the Bible. There are pieces of information that I feel like that's okay, and there are places also that I'm like, no, that cannot be, this cannot be talking to me and all. So if you're a religious woman who is on the journey of deconstruction, that should be something that you should consider as well, because when they talk about even how woman was brought into the picture to begin with, it makes it very hard, right, for religious women. It's usually very difficult for a religious woman to believe that submission is something she does not have to do, or to believe that the man does not have to be her ruler or her head, the man who she's married to does not have to be. It is difficult to explain autonomy to a religious woman, and the reason is because this woman believes in everything that the Bible says. She genuinely believes that she came as an afterthought. She came as a helper to man. She came to man as a solution to a need. So it's like when you wake up and when you have a job and you're going to work every time, and it's stressful, getting public transport to work every time, it's stressful and it's tiring. Then maybe your creator or somebody bigger than you, your boss, can come and be like, oh, I've noticed you coming to work late and it's stressing you a lot that you have to come to work, so I'm going to buy you a car. And the person brings a car to you. Or in this case, they said he put him to sleep and took a bone and made woman out of him. So similar to what I was saying in my previous video, men do not, because of this mindset, right? Men consider women as a part of them. Like, they don't consider women as individuals on their own, as autonomous beings. They consider them as an extension of them, like something that they took out of them to create you. So they have that mindset in their head. So it's very difficult for you to get them to understand autonomy. So, and women also believe these things, so it's difficult for women to also understand autonomy. So abusing women within religion is not difficult. And I feel like if every woman understands autonomy, abuse will sort of go down a lot, because women will understand that a lot of things that they take, a human being should not be treated in that manner. So autonomy is one thing that I struggle to speak to women about. I struggle a lot. And it's something that is very dear to me, that I'm like, oh my God, this is just something I want women to get. Right? Now, they said a man slept and they created woman because a man has a need. So a woman is a tool to fill in, or to fill in a gap in the life of a man. So there is something that is missing in his life. So you're coming as a solution to his problem. It's not like you're coming as a human being or as somebody who he should look at as his equal. No. And at every point in the Bible, when it talks about the relationship of woman and man, you always have a man has to rule over you, a man is above you, a man, there is never a point where women are treated as independent beings. Talking about pastors' wives and all, reaction of women when it comes to my TikTok post, and they'll just be like, oh, these women are patriarchy princesses, these women are these. Pastors' wives, I believe that a larger amount of them are being abused. They are experiencing covert abuse. Some of them are even experiencing overt abuse, but a lot of people just don't know. One thing about marrying a pastor is that you are also concerned about his public image, because from the word go, their entire lives as pastors, they worry a lot about their public image. So if he's marrying you, before he even marries you, he has to ensure that you're somebody who would be concerned about his public image. So they target the women that they married, because they target women who fit into a specific box. The whole entire mommy geo is a box that you have to fit into. So these women are, one, targeted. Secondly, after targeting them, they are being trained, because you will see them saying things like, oh, because most pastors' wives will just be like, me, I didn't plan to marry a pastor. Or the man would now come with an argument that he qualifies, because maybe she will be like, oh, I'm not qualified to do that kind of job. I'm not a very patient person, and I cannot be patient with people. I'm not I don't like being in public faces. And the person will just be like, oh, you don't have to worry. So he will tell you, you don't have to worry. God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the chosen, be they called. So, they manipulate these women into acceptance. And when these men come into your life, they make it look like they are trying to build your relationship with God, as if they are trying to help you get closer to God. They put themselves in a position where you reverence them. Even before you marry them, there's a certain level of reverence that these women reverence these men, because, one, they've put fear inside of you. They tell you that a man who is a pastor is somebody who is ordained by God. So whatever word that comes out of his mouth becomes an authority. That is in the same manner that spiritual abuse happens. So it does not only happen to these men's wives, it also happens to the members of their churches. Because I used to attend a church some years back, where this pastor will be like, if God tells anybody something in the church, that you cannot argue with him, because God has to tell him before he tells you anything. So anything that God tells you that you come and meet him with, if he did not hear it, then God really did not speak to you, because he is the pioneer of the vision, right? He's the visionary of the church. So whatever God wants has to talk to him first. So these people put themselves above. In fact, at a point, he said God cannot bypass him to speak to any other person. So because of that, it's in the same manner that these women have these things at the back of their minds. They genuinely believe that these men hear directly from God. And if you've been around the church, you will know that when it comes to pastors, there's this fear and reverence that they put in your head, from that word of touch not my anointed and do my prophet no harm. You have this level of fear to even confront them if they do anything wrong. And that also includes their wives. Now, I'm bringing you to something, right? That's why I'm sharing all these stories. There's this other ministry I used to attend, and one preacher came and he was preaching something, and he said that he came to service and it's like he moved powerfully within church service that day. The Holy Spirit was at work and all that. So he was actually teaching women things, right? So after that service, that when he went back, his wife brought oranges or something, that she peeled oranges and came and knelt down in his presence. And the wife told him, oh, she doesn't want to let's see finish, not enter. If you're not Nigerian, see finish simply means familiarity bringing contempt, right? So he's like, let it not look like because she's his wife, she's over familiar. This thing that God did here, she wants it in her life. So it's more like she honored him that day and she got a blessing out of it. So these people do these things, and these are some of the ways that they manipulate women who marry these men into believing that these women, let me say, they idolize these men. Now, let me take example with what happened the US election recently between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump supporters. There are women who are married who did not bother to check why they are voting for Trump, right? And this also happens with any political, any decision to vote, really. There are women who genuinely did not know why they were voting for Trump, except their husbands support Trump and they are excited. So even when they come online and they see people make videos and be like, oh, Trump is going to enforce abortion bans within states, they really don't understand what that thing means, right? So they are like, no, our religion even says abortion is a sin, so we are not even supposed to be having abortions to begin with. Now, they did not care to really read and understand or even watch videos or find out information, because if their husband says so, it's okay. Now, these women never understand that if I am a woman and I live in a country where abortion has been banned, I could literally pass if I ever get pregnant mistakenly, and it happens to be ectopic pregnancy, it means I am gone. But because they told them that your husband is your leader, and somehow at the back of their heads, they believe that that man has their best interests at heart. So him voting for Trump is quote and unquote voting the right person for them as well. So they are not making researches because they believe that that man has their interests at heart. This man might have an agenda to say, oh, he belongs to a religion where they have preached that abortion is a sin. But you're not thinking that outside, and a lot of women will just be like, oh no, me, I'm even married, so I cannot even get pregnant out of wedlock and want to abort, and I also don't believe in abortion. But it goes beyond that, right? So we have Christian women voting for Trump because they believe that if you get pregnant and have a miscarriage, they are not thinking, even if I want the pregnancy and I get pregnant and I have a miscarriage, doctors can literally not give me an evacuation, because they cannot perform an evacuation because of abortion ban, and you can pass from it. They can just look at your case. In fact, if you have a miscarriage, you can go to prison for having a miscarriage. They are not thinking about all these things. So they make their decisions based on the information that their husbands have, and they believe that this man has their best interest at heart. A man cannot have those thoughts and say, a lot of men will not think about you and say, if they ban abortions, when his wife eventually gets pregnant, if it happens that to be a miscarriage, this is what will happen to her. No, because a lot of men even use women to exercise their faith. They use women to learn faith, right? So he believes that when you get pregnant and anything happens like that, he can pray. So these women are literally not they are conditioned to not think about themselves, but to think about what pleases men. So they are just following what their husbands say. Now, let me ask you, if you have a problem with these women saying, oh, why can't they refuse to preach these things, right? If a man has started a church and he married a woman, do you think he would allow her to preach or give her or any audience in church if she does not agree, if she's not in agreement with him? So they must have trained these women, and sometimes they cajole these women into this level of submission to a point where these women are preaching these things. Now, growing up, we used to have this pastor in my family church who, his wife at the time, so he was not yet a confirmed pastor, right? He was a pastor, but he had not gone to theological school. And the church that I attend, you have to go to theological school to get promotion to a certain level, right? So it's like he was not yet a reverend, let me say. So he wanted to do that, and by doing that, you will go to the church board, and the church board will talk with you and your wife and confirm that you actually have a calling before they send you to school to go and become to theology properly and become a reverend. So they had gone to meet. She is married to this guy, and this guy has been maltreating her for a while. So they had gone to the board, and the board asked her if she's certain that her husband has a calling, and she said no, she's not certain. When they came back home, this man would refuse to eat. He would not talk to her. He started abusing her, emotional abuse, mental abuse, and all that, to a point where she was forced to go back to tell the council of elders that she's certain that the man actually has the call. So they eventually let him go to school. So these women, if they preach otherwise, what do you think when they go back to the house with these men? What do you think will happen to them? So they have to preach these things to please these men. One, for their own safety. Two, because they reverence marriage and they want their marriages to work by all means. They have to do those things. And a lot of these women preach their experience and tell you that is how men are. When I implemented this and this in my marriage, I realized we stopped fighting with my husband. So when these men abuse them emotionally and withhold affection from them, that affection withholding is one way that men teach women lessons and teach women how to be submissive, right? So it's like if they want you to do something, they withhold affection from you. It will not force you to do what they want, because women crave that affection a lot. And women, when they enter marriage, they don't think about divorce, right? They have their minds like, oh, my marriage will work, especially within religious women who have been raised to believe that if your marriage fails, you are a failure, and your marriage failing is equivalent to you failing in life, and you are a disgrace. Your family will like, it's just a lot, right? So when they start experiencing those covert abuse, and they believe that it is because of their character. So we have a lot of preachers where, if you even pay close attention to a lot of these women who preach about marriage and submission, when you pay close attention to them, when they tell their own stories, within their stories, you can see how they too are victims of abuse. So they will tell you how these men punished them and coerced them into submission, but they will not call it punishment or coercion. Rather, they will make a doctrine out of it and tell you that that is how men are. One of the reasons they come to that conclusion is because they married somebody who they believe to be born again, and a born again is generally accepted as the ideal husband. So it's like that's the standard for a perfect man within religion. So these born again men, when they marry their wives and realize that, oh, the woman does not want to do this, she does not want to do that, they coerce them by the means of harassment, that is verbal abuse, or mental and emotional abuse, then these women will be left with no choice than to do what that man pleases, right? So when they start doing his will, then he releases a little bit of affection to them. When he does that, they take it that that is how men are, so it's working for them. And because that is what these women use to cope, they come back and teach you those things, that those are the things that men want. If you do those things, men will stop. You have a man at the back of your arms. So what they teach religious women is mostly seduction and coping mechanisms with abusive men. That's what they teach them. They say wake up at night. They don't encourage communication, they don't encourage autonomy. They will tell you, oh, in fact, have you not heard messages where they say things like, people who their marriages work are fools. If your marriage, if behind every successful marriage is a foolish woman, you will hear things like that. If you're too smart, your marriage will not work. If you think you know your rights, your marriage will not work. So those are really abusive things that they preach here and there, and that's how women grow, and they believe that abuse is normal. In fact, they don't even consider it abuse. They tell you that that is the normal thing. If a man is happy, you will be happy. Do you get? So a lot of these women live very unfulfilled lives. A lot of them are very unhappy. They go through a lot of things in the hands of these men that are unbearable, but they eventually teach you how to cope. Religion makes people to lack empathy. That is one thing you should understand. You will lack empathy, you will lack critical thinking, you will lack the ability to connect with people outside of religion. So the only thing they can talk about when they meet you is religion. They don't build community. You see how church, they tell you that church is a family, they are a family. But if you're a member of that family and you question anything that family do, they will excommunicate you, or you will cease to be a community member. And whenever they meet you as members of that family, it is only the topics concerning religion that they will ever discuss. They don't, even when they are going through things emotionally, they think it is a spiritual problem. When they are going through mental challenges, they think it is a spirit. Everything they connect it to spirituality, because they've not been able to balance their social life, mental, emotional, and all those lives together. And that's why they preach all this gibberish of telling you, oh, marriage is God ordained. Marriage is not marriage is God ordained. Marriage is this, marriage is that. It's not about your feelings. Marriage is building a kingdom relationship that is supposed to honor God. Marriage is for your pleasure and for your benefit. If marriage moves outside of your benefit, your happiness, your fulfillment, your companionship, there's no reason why you should be there. Marriage is not for God. God does not benefit from your marriage, right? Marriage is not a spiritual thing, it's a social thing. And you determine what you want. There are people who marry only for money. I don't necessarily advise that, but if you want to do that, it's even better for me to advise somebody to marry for money than to marry for any kingdom's sake. Those things are not true. Now, the next thing after teaching these women how to be is they push these women to go and begin to preach this gospel when they are sure that these women have accepted, they've learned properly. Then they put them in front to teach. The reason is because a lot of women struggle with that term submission within the church. A lot of women struggle with marriage a lot within the church, because most men are actually not, you should not be marrying most men, right? So most men are not marryable. So, and a lot of women struggle with the word submission. So these women are actually programmed for this purpose, right? So what they will come and teach you is like, that was what I did and I have success with my own marriage. So that is what I'm teaching you. Because I have success, I'm teaching you the same thing in order for you to have success. So you will look at that your pastor's wife and be like, if this is what she did to get Pastor A, Pastor B, Pastor C, Pastor D to love her that way, if I do it, my husband will love me. It will not work, because even that pastor that you adore so much is not as great of a husband in the manner that you think he is, right? So This is the purpose. The purpose is for these women to be put in front as examples that you should be looking out for. These women, look at them with pity. A lot of these women are being abused. You have more freedom than most of them. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Share this video with your friends and drop a comment for me if you have questions concerning anything that I've said. Drop that in the comment section and I'll do well to reply you. Bye.